My name is Matt Evans. This will be recorded for Enterprise Cyber Law and Compliance Strategies at GCU, and that is going to be for course CYB-630 here in 2026. So to begin with, the FIPPs are going to be your Fair Information Practice Principles. These are what form the foundation for many of the global privacy laws and organizational data protection strategies. These 8 principles are going to be the building blocks for many of those strategies and laws, beginning with the Privacy Act of 1974 here in the U.S., and that is going to be transparency, individual participation, purpose specification, data minimization, use limitations, data quality and integration, security, and of course, accountability and auditing. And to break these down, starting with transparency. Basically, transparency is that you are, as the business, would need to inform users why you're collecting data, what the data is going to be used for, where they can find that data, and just to inform them that they do have access to it later, which leads you into the individual participation to access or correct the data. So if there is data that is collected, the data that the people or the individual has been collected from, they should have access to it. Not only should they have access, but they have the right to correct any data as well if it's misleading, misinterpreted, collected incorrectly, or the information itself has been also incorrect. That, of course, leads into the next principle, is to define the purpose. So you have to be very upfront on why you are collecting data, and so forth. And then data minimization, you only collect the relevant data for as long as it's needed. So if there is data that needs to be collected and stored for 5 years, at 5 years and 1 day, it's gone. You don't have it anymore. You've released it. You've given it back to the person that it was collected from, or etc. Continuing these, use limitations. And the data that is collected should only be used for its intended purposes. Data quality, you should always ensure accuracy. The PII should be accurate, relevant, timely, even if it's a complete breakdown of an individual and their personal information, right? Security, the most important part of, I think, all of these principles is that once the data is collected, it has to be safeguarded. It has to be protected against risks such as loss, unauthorized access or use, improper destruction, modification, or any unintended or inappropriate disclosure, so data breaches. And then lastly, accountability. DHS has actually went in and said that they should be accountable for complying with these principles, providing all training to employees and contractors who use the PII, and auditing the actual use of PII to demonstrate compliance within these principles, and all applicable privacy protection requirements. Which is a mouthful, just to say that every company should have a safeguard in place. Every company is accountable for their own data that they collect and they store. It shouldn't be on me to say, as a company, to say, hey, it's not our fault that our data was breached. Somebody at somewhere else where we store it allowed that to happen. It's our data, we protect it. And next, the difference between the FIPPs and privacy laws themselves. FIPPs are involuntary and not enforceable. These are guidelines. These are principles that you should follow. They directly have a say and shape in how privacy laws are enacted and created and enforced, but they are not the law themselves. So that's what makes them just guidelines. Laws themselves would be enforceable rules, just like speed limits, etc. Those kind of things would be the law. Key distinction is that it is a framework versus rules that have penalties if not followed. The enforcement mechanisms are there with laws, not with guidelines. That's going to be the guiding difference. So applying the FIPPs to PII is going to have a lot of scenarios where you're doing it to reduce breaches. Again, you're telling the participant or the person giving the information to you how it's being used, why it's being collected, etc. That limitation prevents misuse or unauthorized sharing. Security safeguards immensely have to be increased to protect against cyber threats and other variables in other threats, simply as in internal, phishing, etc. And then overall, it has to be protected, because if it's not, you don't have any trust. And as a company, if there's no trust in the company, there's no trust in you, and then there's no money. Right? So data quality ensures that accuracy, which reduces harm and anything that could fall out of that from incorrect information. And at the federal level, the federal agency use here, transparency, again, is going to be telling you what your data is used for. Participation aspect is going to be the right to access your data, where, how, when, why, etc. Minimization is going to be the less you collect, the less that business is going to be responsible for protecting, encrypting, making sure it's being safeguarded, what they're responsible for if there is a breach, and so forth. And then lastly, the audit, just compliance checks. Businesses have to run their own internal audits, and if not, have a company audit you. It's that easy. Find where you're weak at, find where you need help at, find where you need to make better, and do that. The more trust that is in your company, the better you are long run. And lastly, these are just a couple of the resources that are out there for FIPPs, PIIs, data protection regulations, etc. And you're more than welcome to pause here and go to any of these.